Okay, there we go. Much better. Much better. That's good vibes. So welcome to the museum. How many of you are here for the very first time? There you go. Very first time. I hope you're enjoying the museum. Just a quick little story about the museum. The museum started in 1999. Yes, when I was born. Right. Yeah. We all have the 19 in front of our year, correct? So anyway, welcome to the museum. We started in 1999. We were a traveling exhibit, traveled all over the place. In 2006, we opened in the city of Santa Clarita. We were there for 1 year. The city promised us the world, and of course the city didn't deliver the world. So after a year lease was over, we moved and looked for a place and moved to the city of Burbank. We were in Burbank for 14 years. It was a small place, but it was a great place. You know, we did a lot of stuff in that small little place. We honored some pioneers that have long gone. And, you know, from Bill Ryusaki to, you know, Fumio Demura, Takaboda, and many, you know, Richard Bustillo, everybody, we were able to honor them. And that was very cool. So we were able to do that with, even though we had a small museum, it was still really fun. We did a lot of events there. And, you know, and then finally we outgrew the place. As you know, our little theater was outside in the cold. And when it rained, it rained. And when it was hot, it was hot. But we had everything on the outside, but we just kind of outgrew it. You know, we having people in the hallways, so we needed a new place. We had worked with Eric the trainer to look for a place. We had found a place with Eric. We had some investors on board, but sadly, as you know, Eric passed away. So all those meetings with the investors that he had, that didn't go through because he had the meeting and I didn't. But anyway, we moved on. We said, okay, that's all right. We're ready to move. And that's what we did. We found this location here in the city of Glendale. We worked really hard to get this location. Unfortunately, after maybe 5 months or 6 months of negotiation, the deal fell through. Somebody else bid on the place and they got the place. And then what happened a few weeks later, their deal fell through. They went back to us and said, you guys still interested? He goes, yes, we are. And voila, we made a deal and opened these doors. We moved here in November of last year. Karen and I were hauling stuff from the other place every night here. So we were still open over there because we thought the deal was over. We thought we weren't going to get the place. So we already booked events from November to December because they said the deal didn't go through. So that's what we did. We booked all these events. Well, lo and behold, we got this place, so we still had to hold those events. So we couldn't take anything out of that place until the events were done and then move in this place. So we built it, came here, brought our stuff day and night. Karen and I were here, bringing everything from storage, and then we started making the walls and the props and stuff. I didn't know how to do it. I was struggling galore. I put a call for help on Facebook, and lo and behold, this man over here, beautiful man, Robin Price, came to my rescue, and here we were day and night putting up these walls and everything, and I learned how to be a contractor. So if anybody needs an extra extension on their home, you know who to call. But no, we did a fabulous job. We just laid it out. When I walked in the door, I already had a vision of what the place was going to be. I already knew exactly what's the place. A few people that helped us out, Jerome, Lady, David, many people that helped us out, brought stuff here, Jacqueline, everybody that brought stuff here, that they came in the door and I said, this is going to go here and this is going to go there, and they're all looking at me like I'm psycho. Like, you know, what's going to go there? I said, just wait. So I went on the ground, I put tape on the ground all over the place, and I laid it out, and I said, there it is. That's the museum. And I showed Robin, that's the museum. And sure enough, right almost to every tape, we made every wall, because I already had it in my mind. I already saw an 8,000 square foot place in my mind, and I already envisioned every wall, everything that was going to be in there, and there it was. So how cool was that?
It was a disco.
Yeah.
Disco there.
There you go, disco, there you go, there you go. So we are just thrilled to be in this location. I'm just very excited to be here. We have finally got approval from the city school district, so yay, we are now on the list. We just had our first school the other day. It was packed with kids, and I said, oh my God, what have I done?
Created a monster.
I did. They were all over the place, but it was a lot of fun. You know, the great thing about having the kids here at this museum is they were like, the whole time, they're seeing sharp weapons, they're seeing samurai, you know, the whole time. So the teacher said, this is the best behavior that my kids have ever been on a field trip. So we're thrilled to death of that. So we are looking for docents to help us out later on, and that will help us give the tours as we start getting more and more schools in. And once we get the schools in, that'll be fantastic. We get a whole bunch. I'm hoping we designed this place to fit 3 schools at a time, so which is 180 kids. But anyway, we are thrilled to death to have this theater. This theater now that we have 122 seats total, so we're very thrilled about having that. We have wonderful chairs from the old place. We brought these chairs from the old place. Yes, we cleaned them. We brought them here, cleaned them. We had 60 chairs in storage. So we brought those out, because you know, here you couldn't fit that many at the old place. So we brought them out of storage and came and brought them here, and lo and behold, here they are. And you know, it's so funny. We had 120, 2, 4, 3, 4, 5, 26. I'm an artist, not a mathematician. We had 126 chairs total. When we laid this out, it was 122 exactly. With 4 of the chairs were ripped in the back. And so all the good chairs, 122 exactly fit in here. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? You know who would have thought. So anyway, I am thrilled to death to have one of our first screenings here today. You know, I worked with this beautiful man named Bey Logan, a marvelous guy. In case you don't know who he is, Bey Logan is the guy and producer of not only Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, which we're going to see today, but he also did The Medallion, and he also did Forbidden Kingdom, and many, many, many more movies. So we're very proud to have such a wonderful man here today. And he's going to do a quick little talk about the movie. Has anybody seen the movie? You saw the movie? Okay, for the rest of you, it's a wonderful treat. We have the actual props from the movie back there. These are the ones from the movie. A donor, when they come today, I will say their name. They didn't want me to say their name, but when they come, I'll say their name when they're here. But an anonymous donor, let's just say that for right now. And those are all the props from the movie. I do have, there's Michelle Yeoh's outfit and what's his name? Jason Scott Lee's outfit is on display. We have another 13 more outfits. We just didn't have enough mannequins to put on. So. Yeah, we just need more mannequins, guys. We just don't have enough. But we have 13 other original outfits as well. So we're very thrilled. When you see the movie, look at the props and say, oh yeah, that was in the movie. There are some great props we're very happy to have. And we're working with a collector who is helping us with some of these props to get some of these rare stuff throughout the year. So I'm very excited about that. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring up the man himself, and I'm also going to bring up 2 other guys I know he wants to come up with him, Mr. Bey Logan, Mr. Don Wilson, and Mr. James Liu. Come on up, guys.
Thank you, and I've won the bet. There are more than 5 people here, just counting. Okay. I respect Mike Matsuda. I respect Mrs. Matsuda even more. Behind every great man is a great woman going, a museum of what? And what an honor to share the stage with, we don't just have a crouching tiger, hidden dragon, we actually have a revealed dragon in the person of Don. And of course, the mighty James Liu, you know, the Dragon Master himself. So I was actually going to give a little background to how we made a sequel to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. If you'd like to hear that, or if you want, these gentlemen, do you want to talk a little bit about your backgrounds and what you're up to? Both. As well? Okay, because I was thinking I would just do my thing and then we'd lead into watching the movie. So maybe, Don, tell us what you're up to.
Life's always... Test. Am I?
you.
Well, you can hear me without this thing, probably big enough mouth. Every chance I get, I go to the gym, hit the heavy bag. That's my pleasure. And the movie industry was the retirement job that I got. The idea was from Chuck Norris. He used to go to my fights and he said, Don, when you retire, move to LA and do acting. He said, it's a great second career. And so I'm doing the same thing that I always do, train whenever I get a chance, and I work in the film industry.
Yeah. I want to tell you why Don became the star he did. Don is, first of all, the nicest guy. He was the nicest guy as a competitor, the nicest guy as an actor. What he used to do that not many other actors used to do is he would actually go around the country to all the little video stores, all the video retailers, all of the conventions, give karate lessons to their kids, take pictures with their wives and whatever. And this was a great tactic. His films are cool anyway. But what happened was, then whenever his movie came into the store, they would say, I'm going to have that because he's my buddy. So Don became like the friend of every video retailer in America, and that gave a platform to his films.
Yeah, I spent a month for the video releases. I spent a month on the road. I would leave Monday and get back home Friday, and I would fly sometimes to 3 cities in one day.
Yeah.
To go into
Amazing.
the video stores. I was Mr. Blockbuster. I'm surprised everybody here to say, oh yeah, you were in my town. Because I did. I released 30 movies, and every one of them I was on they were direct-to-videos, of course.
Yeah.
And I was on the circuit for a month at a time for all those films.
And you know what was amazing about Don's career is the fact that he kind of it's one of the few people who firstly could transition from being a successful kickboxer to doing movie action, which is a very different discipline, as James can probably speak to. And beyond that, what I've always said to people is if martial art training only helps you inside the wall speak to. And beyond that, what I've always said to people is if martial art training only helps you inside the wall of the dojo or the guan, then it's limiting. But he applied his martial arts background and a kung fu background as well, so this is even more unusual for a kickboxing champion.
They said kung fu guys can't fight.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
That's right.
They don't say that anymore.
Step up. Well, Don Hamby's in the audience. No one says it about Don, that's for sure. But anyway, he applied kung fu strategy to the marketplace and used that to have a career rather than go around complaining about, oh, nobody gives me a shot, nobody will give me this. Andy Cheng in the house, ladies and gentlemen. And, I mean, we get along well because James is a living legend and I'm a living legend. So we just have the same letters in a different order. But James also, somebody I've greatly admired over the years. And, if you only ever see one clip of James, you've got to watch National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon when he fights Charlie Sheen. Yeah. And in that scene, you may remember in the original Kickboxer, they get the glue on those gloves and they tip them in like broken glass. And then in that version, he goes to fight and it's like broken glass, then it sprinkles M&Ms, jelly teddy bears and what have you in Lampoon's. But you succeed in every field. You're the forms champion. You went into, you had the first brand, Dragon Master. Then you got into acting yourself and choreography. That's 4. And now he's writing a book. Could you leave that to me? Yes. Can I do one thing, please?
I'll put it under your name.
Yeah, okay, I'll do.
So, I've been very fortunate with being in martial arts. I have to say that I've been beaten up by everybody in Hollywood, including that guy over there. But what a career I've had. I mean, I owe everything to martial arts, and for health-wise, for great friendships, travel around the world, name it. It's absolutely wonderful. Yes, and I am almost finished writing a book. Not being a writer really makes it tough. And it's more about the how-to do movie fights, from how not to hurt your star, how to make it look real, the right camera angles and all that, the whole technical.
I have a question for you. When somebody who's a really highly skilled martial artist makes the transition into doing movie fire choreography, what is the biggest shock to them, that surprised them about how different it is to how they thought it was going to be?
Don't hit your guy.
But sell the shot.
Yeah, and it's that technical part about making it look real.
Yeah.
It's called acting in martial arts.
Yeah. What got to me when I did a few fight scenes in Hong Kong was I wasn't aware. I would just see the finished shot in the movie and replicate that in front of my mirror at home. What I didn't realize was that somebody had done that 15 times, 16 times at 3 in the morning in very cold or very humid conditions. And the sheer stamina, right, Don?
Well, I tell people it's always too hot, too cold, too dry, or too wet, and that's why they call it a job. And to shoot a fight scene, you're not there for 30 seconds or 40. It's 12-hour days.
Yeah.
Those are the minimum 12-hour days. And James Liu knows on my sets, I've literally shot a 23-hour day.
Wow.
Yeah, because we're a little lower budget, and we do it until it's done.
Guys, I hate to tell you this, but where's Andy? In Hong Kong, wow. 3分鐘，哇，係好似放假. It's like a holiday.
I know.
We you know, like, I remember when we did Gen X Cops, and Benny Chan, the late great Benny Chan, the young actors were all complaining about the hours, and Benny Chan said, you know what, when Choi Hart was doing Shanghai Blues, they got behind the schedule, and he locked the studio doors for 3 days and 3 nights, and nobody could leave till they caught up. And I had occasion to meet Choi, and I said, Choi, is it true? And he goes, it's not true. I think it could be. He says it was 4 days and 4 nights. He was so proud.
Okay, I will quit complaining then.
Yeah.
I had a 23-hour day, but I complained about that.
Well, you were doing union shows, right?
Well, I had 3 directors that I worked with, and what it was is Roger Corman movie.
Yep.
And Roger Corman, he's passed away, but so I'm not ratting him out. But there's no SAG on his sets, and they know that. They just allow Roger, you're a SAG actor, but you work until the job is done. And they went through 3 different directors, 8 hours each. But except for me, I worked 23 straight hours because the sets had to be broken down. A new movie was starting the next day. So, and Gary Daniels was part of it, though. He was
my man.
I think the last 10 hours of that day was me and Gary doing the final fight scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he did a great job too.
If you have to do it in that kind of time, Gary's the guy.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
10 straight hours.
I know, it's insane.
No pickups, nothing.
I remember when Michael Biehn, who was in the film The Abyss, which is famous as the toughest shoot in Hollywood history, he did a movie with me in Hong Kong called Dragon Squad, and he was being interviewed by the local press, and they said, Mr. Biehn, and Michael, and they said to Michael, well, how was it working on The Abyss? And he says, let me tell you, compared to Dragon Squad, The Abyss was like Club Med. The Abyss was like a vacation. But anyway, what was the longest hours you had to do at a stretch that you remember? Maybe even lucky.
Wow.
He's still on it.
Yeah. In fact, I have to go. No.
Yeah.
I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah.
Because in the union world, there's restrictions. So thank God for that.
I've got a question for you though, because especially on some of your recent Marvel stuff, it's like, what do you do when you're stuck with an actor who absolutely positively can't do the moves and the clock is ticking? Because we never have that in Hong Kong, because everybody can fight.
Yeah.
Even me.
But that comes in choreographing things that it's possible for him to do, not to come
Right.
something to make. It's all about make your actor look fantastic.
Right.
Can I
That's my
add
job.
something more to that? I was in Batman Forever, which was the tentpole movie for Warner Brothers that year. Chris O'Donnell is the guy. Chris O'Donnell he's the nicest guy in the world, by the way, but he had 3 stunt doubles. 3, one was doing the flips, the Mitch Gaylord, Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
One was doing the martial arts, and one did like the high climbing things and
Yeah.
jumping. So when you're the big budget and you got 3 different stunt doubles, you got to look good.
Mm.
So yeah, that's how the big budget guys do it.
Yeah.
So what's the next project on your docket? What are you working on next?
Well, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag.
The dragon out the bag.
But because of the pandemic, I know it's been a tragic time for most people, but for me it's been a 2-year vacation. I took off, I didn't do any work, nothing. And now I got producers coming to me, 6 of them, and they say, any movie you want to do, I'll finance. All of them said it. And I'm just picking the right story and script right now. But I have one. It will not be getting any Oscar nominations. But I'm from the Roger Corman School of Film. I copy things that have already worked.
Yeah.
And you get a small piece of that audience, then you've got a success. So I'm ripping off the Expendables, in the fact that I'm going to have everybody you've ever seen do a line of dialogue in a martial art movie will have a part in there if they want it. So far they've all said yes.
We're ready.
Anybody.
Yeah, we're ready.
One line.
Send us in.
Look, I've already used everybody I know in LA.
Oh wow.
So you're going to have to be in my next
I'll be
film,
there.
babe.
That'd be great.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Give me the love scenes.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what Don has done, and what I found great about Don is the fact that, you know, he started out, he was a martial artist coming into movies. Now when he brings to his acting is all these years of experience in the real world, and I think that the films are going to have like the drama and the acting and the action are going to be at the same level, so I can't wait to see what you come
Well,
up with.
I did take some acting lessons.
No, but I mean
I've been
life
doing it for 40
experience.
years now, though, so
You-
so a little bit I can.
You get seasoned.
And well, I like taking the best actors that we can afford
Yeah.
and putting them in the movie. And I understand there is an actor, I'm not going to name any names, but he says he wants to be the best actor on the set. And I tell people, if I'm the best actor on the set, we're going to have a problem with this movie. Because I want to get the best actors that we can afford. And so I surround myself with experienced people.
Fantastic.
The movie that me and James Lou did with Michael Ironside,
Oh.
Edward Albert Jr., we had 2 Oscar nominated
Red
actors.
Sunrise.
Mako.
Oh, I love that
Mako.
film. Red Sunrise.
But I'm saying we had, as a supporting cast, all the best actors we could get.
I think, do you consider that your best movie? I think it's up there, Red Sunrise.
It was this, and I'm not saying my performance was the best, but it was the easiest acting job for me because that character happened to be very close to me.
Yeah.
He grew up in where he was prejudiced again, not for being Asian, for being Americanized, you know, in the story. Whereas I grew up in Florida, which is considered the South, and I was the only Asian in my school. So, and they just started desegregating then, by the way. They closed the black schools and they shipped them to the white. So you had a big group of white kids, a big group of black kids, and the dragon. And, but I tell people, and I give speeches, me and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar used to do them at the high schools in LA, on motivational things for kids. I took a negative and turned it into a positive. Because I was not accepted, I found out though, if you shoot a 30-foot jump shot and it goes in, everybody likes you. They don't care that I'm yellow. They call me Asians yellow. And so the black guy said, well, so you're not white, you're on our team today. And the white guy said, hey, you're not black, you're on our team. So I was accepted by the black community and the white community in the South, deep South Florida, and as a child. And that's not why I did the martial arts though. The martial arts came because my brother studied martial arts. But that's why I went to sports. And I was the MVP of my high school football and basketball team, both. And which is not easy because it's 2 totally different sports, different skill sets. But when you want to be accepted, you have more motivation. And that's why I tell people it's, you got to think it in your head, say it with your mouth, and then do everything you need to do to accomplish your goals. But if you have no goals, you just you're like a piece of driftwood floating in the ocean. You'll go wherever the current blows you, good, bad, up, down. You got to have goals, and you know, I encourage anybody to take the lessons that they learn in martial arts, apply it to their daily lives.
Don the Dragon Wilson, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I just wanted to give a little preamble to the movie about how we came to make the film. So, gentlemen, maybe you want to just resume your seats, because I would feel it was kind of wrong of me to be just doing my solo act. All right, so everybody's asking, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 1 was such a classic, why did we do a sequel? Well, let me tell you folks. I was actually at the Cannes premiere of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 1 because I was working with Michelle Yeoh at the time. And I'll never forget going into the Palais in Cannes and sitting to watch the movie begin, and it's Dragon Fat and Michelle Yeoh talking. And the audience of French people just sitting there. Then they had the first fight between Michelle and Ji, and it was like boom, 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 fight. Then it stopped and there was silence. And I was like, they don't get it. And then there was such a roar of applause and shaking of jewelry and stamping of feet. I realized these people had never seen a swordplay, a wuxia movie before. And that was the first. So after that, we know Ang Lee doesn't really like to do sequels to his films. So 10 years passed, and the company I was working with at the time was interested in doing a stage version, a theatrical musical version of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which I still think is a good idea. And so we went to the family of Wang Dulong, who was the author of the original wuxia novels, the 5 novels on which Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is based. There are 5 novels each one has a double epithet. So the fourth one is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The fifth one is Iron Knight, Jade Hairpin. So each of the 5 books has a couplet as a title, and the fourth one was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So we went to the family of Wang Dulong, who actually live in Canada, and said, we'd like to do a musical based on the fourth book. And they said, great, by the way, would you like to buy the film rights to books 1, 2, 3, and 5? And we were like, what? Sony didn't buy those rights? No, and they said, we're pissed at Sony. They told us they were buying the rights to do a low-budget indie film with this guy, Ang Lee, and we sold it to them for next to nothing, and the film was this monster hit, and it won Oscars. They never gave us thereafter. So we're pissed. We're happy to sell you the rights to the prequel and the sequel. So we snapped up the rights and began developing a film based on book 5 of the 5 books. And we then had to negotiate to use some elements of the movie that Ang Lee had made based on book 4. So we sat down, developed it. We got director Yuen Woo-ping, who was this famous martial arts choreographer and director. He'd launched the career of Jackie Chan with Snake in the Eagle Shadow, Drunken Master. He'd done the action for The Matrix. He did the action for the first Crouching Tiger and many, many classic films. So we asked him to direct the film, and we then developed a script. And my initial position on the movie was just as producer. And the guy who wrote the script, his name is John Fusco, was producing a TV series called Marco Polo at the time, also for our company. And he basically said, you know what, I really don't have time to work on Crouching Tiger. You just take that and you write it. And everybody was like, yeah, babe, you just write it. Like, you know, you take out the trash. You're like, you know, you just get the coffee. And I was like, yeah, let me just write the sequel to the greatest martial arts wuxia film of all time. So I sat there and I was like Professor X. I was using mind power to try to come up with something that would work. A story. My take on it was, if the first film was Alien, our film was Aliens. If the first film was an atmosphere art film, the second film was going to be slam bang action. You're about to see it, and you can tell me afterwards if you think we succeeded or not. A couple more points I want to say. We actually scoured the world looking for somewhere to shoot the whole movie. In the end, we went to New Zealand, which might sound like an odd choice, but they had a great tax rebate. Also, we inherited all of the crew, and we had the same costume designer, the same production designer as Lord of the Rings, which is your Western wuxia. So that meant when we went there, everybody had got experience of doing fantastic, and even there were some shots and scenes in the movie, which I think if I didn't tell you were from Crouching Tiger, you might think it was from Lord of the Rings, because it's still in New Zealand, right? It looks the same. So, my last story. Ang Lee, Bill Kong, all of the people from the first movie, apart from Michelle Yeoh and Yuen Woo-ping, were not involved with the sequel. And I was in New Zealand with Yuen Woo-ping, who's known as Batye, that's his nickname, Seventh Uncle. We were scouting in New Zealand to see where we were going to shoot. And we went to Peter Jackson's post-production facility to see whether we would do the post there in Wellington. And as I was walking to use the restroom, I saw Ang Lee, the director of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, sitting in the coffee shop. And I did like a double take, and I'm thinking, you know, is it him or just a guy that looks a lot like him? And I'm feeling guilty about doing the sequel to his great movie. So I went to the bathroom, I came back, and he sees me, and I see him, and I go, Ang Lee, and he goes, white guy from Hong Kong. I said, yes. And he goes, I said, what are you doing here? And he's such a dear, sweet man. He says, oh, I'm doing test footage. I'm going to do a movie about the 1970s era of heavyweight American boxers. It's not greenlit yet. I said, no, I think you're okay, it will be. But he was so nice, he didn't want me to think he was bragging. And he goes, what brings you here, Bey? I said, well, I'm, funny you should mention that. We're doing the sequel to Crouching Tiger 2. And he goes, oh, isn't that with Batye, Yuen Woo-ping? I said, yeah, he's in the other room having his lunch. He goes, oh, well, I should go and say hi. So, I mean, you know what? People say truth is stranger than fiction, because fiction has to make sense. The idea that of all the places and all the cities in all the world, they would both be there at the same time does not bear examining, but that's what happened. So I walked back with Ang Lee, and Yuen Woo-ping, who's a little Yoda kind of guy, is drinking his soup. And I did, hey, look what I found. He's like, whoa. He's like, Director Ang Lee. They chatted back and forth, they had a good conversation, and then I politely walked Ang Lee back to the canteen. And as we're walking for something to say, I just said, you know, you left us some really big shoes to fill by kind of trying to do a sequel to your masterpiece. And Ang Lee, who's a dear sweet man, he stopped in his tracks and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Bey, if you think that way, you can never make anything. You'll get up every day and you'll be jammed. Just have fun with it. Just have fun with it every day. Which I thought was the most kind and the most gracious advice. And we did. And the result is what you're about to see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so bear with us a little bit as we shut off the lights and put on the movie. And thank you, Jacqueline, for helping me out. One of my top students, Jacqueline Egger, right here. Bey wants me to rewind it to a certain place so he can talk. Bey Logan.
There were a lot of producers, but only one writer, and I thought my biggest contribution was writing the script. And when I watch it, all I can see is the lines that got cut and the things that weren't how I imagined them. But it's a pleasure to see it again with a fresh audience. Thank you for all of you. Hey, Harry. And I hope everybody enjoyed watching it. It brings back very special memories for me. It's a movie that's very dear to my heart, and to see people react to it, and it's like watching my kid go on stage, you know, in school. So it's really great. So anybody have any questions? I'll be happy to answer them. I dare not answer because Dom will hit me with the iron tiger claw. Take it away, buddy. Bring it on.
Did you choreograph the fight scene?
The only scene I choreographed is the very beginning, when the kids are with what's meant to be Lee Mubai, but actually is a Beijing stuntman, and they're doing Datmo game with the straight sword. Because it was really, in my memory, it was so wonderful because we actually had a bunch of different directors coming in to work on the movie. We had a guy called Morten Tildum who directed Passengers, we had Peter Berg who did Lone Survivor, we had Yin Wo Ping, we had a Vietnamese director, Charlie Nguyen, and the whole movie cost about $60 million. I mean, different age, they give $60 million to an idiot like me. But anyway, it came down to myself and Charlie and Veronica standing in this big empty stage. All the other directors had fled, all the money had almost been spent, and we're like, so this is what you end up with for $60 million. 4 friends standing in the middle of a soundstage going, what do we do next? And then this line of every Chinese kid who went to school in Auckland is in that scene, and none of them knew martial arts. So they all came in a row. It was quite sad. It was like, you know, homecoming, whatever. And they all looked around and said, look, everyone's left. Bey, you better choreograph it. So I did the Datmo game from our Hong Kong, taught that to them, and that's what you see. That was the only scene I did. However, I would suggest to Yin Wo Ping things that we hadn't seen for a while. And when we introduced Silent Wolf in the kind of the spaghetti western bar, the kind of cafeteria scene, that tiger and crane stuff came from me. I definitely said, that's so low-tone, very old-fashioned, Bey. Do you think, could you update a bit? I said, no, you've seen it a dozen times, but Western audiences really haven't. So it's very cool to do that. And how cool was the guy with the double swords? He's a Maori. And I left his voice in because I love the way he talked. You know, he had a great voice. Yeah, using the stance. I don't want to say I choreographed it, but I would say to Yin Wo Ping, how about this? How about this? You'll hear me smoking in the corner, like that. Donnie would say, every time I would bring in Kung Fu stuff, he would say, you are so in your Kung Fu, man. I want MMA. I want to do martial art of the modern time. And you're back in the day of Wong Fei Hong. But anyway, it was that. Sometimes if you have a conflict towards making things, the result can actually be positive. So that was good. Yes, sir.
Those mountain shots.
Yeah, aren't they incredible?
With a helicopter or?
Helicopter.
Oh, no drones.
Before the drones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they probably had drones. It's 2006, so we didn't use them as readily as we do now. So that was on the South Island, Splinter Crew. We dropped a stuntman on the mountain. He's still there. We dropped the stuntman on the mountain, and he was doing the sword form, and the camera went around, did that. One of my favorite shots in the movie.
Yeah.
It was just really so cool to do that.
Next question.
Yes.
How did you simulate all that ice?
That actually is wax. We tried with ice, we tried with different kinds of plastic. It's actually inside a big warehouse in Auckland, and we covered it with wax. We got really lucky because I am, even though I've done some big CGI heavy films like The Medallion and Twins Effect, I'm famously not a huge fan of CGI. And a friend of mine who did post-production special effects, he had a t-shirt printed that says, "Fix it in pre," as opposed to "fix it in post." So I was always a big fan of that, you know. I think that's actually, you know, fix it in pre. But I think we got lucky because a lot of the times when you make a movie 10 years ago and you look at it today, everything holds up except the effects. I think this stands up pretty good. I was looking at it and the effects work. Mark Stetson and his team did an incredible job. And what was funny was like they'd show you the previs. The previs is a very rough animation, and the whole of the ice sequence with the camera going underneath the ice and then the blocks of ice flying and Donnie's going to fly up and kick them. I remember just thinking, yeah, I kept quiet, but I was just going, is that actually going to happen? Is that going to work? And then he did it. So, you know, my hats off. I think it's just one of the most standout sequences. Yeah. I think the problem with this movie, and it's a nice problem to have, is it was very difficult to follow Crouching Tiger the first because it had been an Oscar-winning classic film, moved at a certain pace. When I look at this movie today, of course I see the things that disappoint me about it, but I think it looks incredible. And that was your first wuxia movie. You didn't do too bad, you know. And then you want to go upriver and see the other movies by King Hu, and you want to see the movies by Choi Hak and all those great Mo Hap Pin. But if you saw this one first as a foreign person watching a film in English, it's okay, I think. He says modestly, but anyway. Yes, sir.
You gonna make any more in the...
You know what's funny? We actually had a story and outline for Crouching Tiger 3. And there's a saying, what is it? Failure is an orphan and success has 1,000 fathers. So this actually performed really well for Netflix. And it's probably the most widely seen wuxia movie. Not kung fu, fist and foot fighting movie, but of a swordplay film, probably the most widely seen. And for one reason and one reason alone, it's in English. You know, when we actually began developing this, and I shudder at the thought, our original plan was we were going to shoot the scene one time in English and then shoot it again in Mandarin. I mean, what were we thinking? And our Chinese partner said, you don't need to, because even if you shoot it in Mandarin, we're going to dub it again because your Mandarin probably isn't good enough. Your actors don't speak good enough Mandarin, so you're going to have to redub it anyway. So we just did that English version, which is what you saw. And then we had an outline for a third film, and it was just difficult. Everybody was fighting is the wrong word, but it was almost like, you know, who's going to be in charge now based on what happened last time. I think this film worked really well, partly because there was conflict behind the scene. Everybody was like outdoing each other, but the benefit was for the audience. And the third film fell apart, I think, because everybody was just jostling behind the scenes and we couldn't quite get it together. But I had a good, so the basic picked up from this, and it was the journey to take the sword to give it to Wu-Tang Mountain. And in the first film, there's a famous speech where they talk about the fact that there were these emeralds that were on the Qingming game, that were on the Green Destiny, that had been lost. And when they delivered the film to Wu-Tang, the Wu-Tang high priest, you know, would be some badass guy, you know, like Zhao Yunfat or somebody. He says, oh, we need these, otherwise there'll be catastrophe. So then the heroes split up and go across China to different places to get the jewels that go into the sword. Maybe I'll write it as a book one day, but anyway, that was the third film, but it never happened.
First of all, if you look at that film, I thought it actually cost more. I mean,
Than 60 million?
It looks like it cost more. You know,
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
The way Disney and Warner Brothers, there's so much bloat in a lot of their films. I think they would love for.
Well, I'll tell you a funny thing. I've gone on record as saying I think one of the worst things of the social media age is filmmakers having a secondary career as a critic of other filmmakers. So I kind of resist it, but I'm going to just do it once and say Mulan was shot with a lot of the same people in the same country. And I think our film stands up against Mulan, which was way more expensive. Anybody work on Mulan? I'm sorry. I'm famous for not wanting to do that, but in this instance, the comparison's obvious based on your question. But it's how you spend the money. It's how you spend the money and what the focus of it is. Yeah.
Quick follow-up.
Sure.
Next to Michelle Yeoh, her student.
Yes.
how did you find her?
I'll tell you, the Natasha story is a really interesting one, and some of you may have noticed that she miraculously comes back to life at the end of the film. So here's what happened. She wrote back to say sorry she's not here today, but maybe it's a good thing because I'm going to tell this story which she's really going to appreciate. So what happened is, I think it's better now, but in 2006 I think there was a perception that there were loads of hugely talented actors, actresses of Asian Pacific extraction waiting to be discovered. And if you did a Crouching Tiger 2, you'd be tripping over people that could play the equivalent of the Zhang Ziyi film from the first movie, the role from the first movie. But we had a hard time. We had two actresses in China. We were going to use Nini or Angela Baby, and there really is an actress called Angela Baby, that's her real name. And they were both tied up doing a remake of What Women Want, or no, Bridal Wars for Fox, at the same time as our movie. So we ended up, well, we'll find an unknown. And we found at the very last month or weeks before we could realistically start training somebody, we found Natasha, who's from Australia. And she was 19 and never done Kung Fu and never been in a movie. But she shows up. And when she started doing her scenes, and they were being sent back to America, to Netflix and everybody, she had this broad Australian accent, so Michelle would do her whole thing with saying, "The sword, it carries so many memories." And then Natasha would go, "Is it as powerful as they say?" and so all this stuff was going back to Hollywood, and they were looking at it and going, "Listen, she's so pretty and she's doing her best with the action, but she really hasn't got it together as an actress." But during the course of the movie, she grew up. She went from 19 to 20. If anybody could, takes a lot, I have a hard time remembering that far back, but you can actually, from your teenage to 20, there's a transition that happens. It happened while she was making this movie. So what happened was, they said, look, she's great for what she's doing, let's kill her off at the end, then we haven't got to worry about her for the threequel, if we plan to do more, which we did. And then, in the course of the movie, she started getting better and better. So then we went back and reshot her earlier close-ups with her doing it with her later skill. And then, when we tested the movie, with her dying, all the test cards came back. Why'd you kill the girl? Why'd you kill the girl? Why'd you kill the girl? At this point, we had nothing to do except we just said, okay, she's riding on the beach, and she obviously was wounded, but she lived. And that was how we had to reconcile it. But that was completely, I mean, that's why I don't mind telling the story, because it's a tale of triumph for Natasha, because I think she was aware that people were looking at her askance, and instead of giving up or taking drugs or going home, she just dug in and worked harder and worked harder, and at the end it really paid off, and I think she steals a lot of the film. And yeah, she says she's sorry she can't be here, but if she had been, I don't think I could have told that story. So any more questions?
Besides, you said New Zealand?
Yes.
And Oakland?
We shot in New Zealand because we wanted that incredible kind of mythological background, also the 30% tax break. And then we shot a week in Beijing, and it's so funny for me looking at it because it works so well. I don't think you can tell what's in Beijing. Well, Andy can tell because he knows what Beijing Film Studios looks like. But it was like did a week in Beijing, and it was very different. I'm going to be really careful what I say here, but the experience in New Zealand with the incredibly professional, smart, experienced, hardworking crews. We went to China, it was very challenging. And maybe because we were a foreign production shooting in Beijing and doing a wuxia movie, whatever. It was much harder to do in China. The China shoot, I remember being particularly challenging. I mean, things would happen like, for example, we had the scene when Michelle rides into, that was in Beijing, rides through the city gates, rides through the city, and she's thinking, because nobody does acting better than Michelle. So she is thinking back to the last time she rode through the gates in the first film. Beautiful, so she's riding along and you can hear the music and you think, she gets beyond building number 3 and into a whole mass of Japanese tourists. Oh, look, it's Michelle Yeoh. So we said to the guy who's the guy from the studio, I said, well, what's going on? He goes, well, you've rented up to there. And I'm like, what do you, so beyond there, and then we had a scene, remember the scene with the river? Well, normally the people actually, they go to one end of the river and they get on a big rubber ring, and then they ride along to the other end, and that's kind of a fun thing to do at the weekends. So we have this big shot set up with the drama, and it's like, I'll remember you forever. Yes, the sword, the sword. And in the middle of them, there'll be this couple in a rubber ring, and they just ride past, and just in a rubber ring on the river. So you had to time it, that there was nobody on a rubber ring. So these things. I remember, okay, I'll get one last story. We were looking for somewhere to have the ending. It ended up being that river. And we came to a place. And has anybody ever seen the movie The Villain with Hal Needham? But there's a scene there where he's got like what looks to be a train tunnel, and they move it, and then they crash into. So there was a fake train. It was a fake train tunnel, but it went in about 4 feet and it stopped. And the location guide says, "So listen, maybe at the end of the movie, Michelle and Donnie ride up, and they look at each other, and they look at each other, and then they ride in this train tunnel." I remember you had to be there, but it was just 4 feet of tunnel, and it kind of looked like, way, and then they ride up. The end. We were like, no, it was like a Looney Tune. Oh, these are things I remember about China. Sorry. Well, it looked great. The stuff that we did in Beijing looked good in the end. Yeah.
Did you write the script?
Yes.
And direct it?
No, I didn't direct the film. I wrote the script, and what happened with the script I alluded to briefly, but I don't mind because I think the guy kind of dropped the ball. There was a writer called John Fusco, a former friend of mine, and when we were preparing the film, I don't mind saying this because he didn't behave particularly well, but we took the script to Yuen Ping, to Michelle, to Donnie, and everybody. Everybody had the same thing. They said, Crouching Tiger 2, great. Outline of the story, the quest for the sword and all this, it's good. And it's following book 5 of the Iron Crane Pentateuch. But can we change it? The script, we don't like this, we don't like that. So I took on the film as a producer with the understanding that we would have rewrites done by the writer. So I flew to Malaysia. Oh, by the way, we were actually, for one mad moment, we were shooting Marco Polo at the Johor Bahru Pinewood Studios, and we had a crazy idea that by day we would shoot Crouching Tiger, by night Marco Polo. And we were saying, wait a minute, one's in the Sung Dynasty, and one's in the, one's in the early Ming Dynasty, early Qing Dynasty. And then, of course, in America they're going, Qing, Ming, Qing, what do you care? It's Chinese guys with swords. But we didn't do that, thankfully. So we went to look at what's your question again? The script, yeah. So I went to where John was in Malaysia, and he just said, "I'm so busy, I'm doing Marco Polo, why don't you do it?" And I was like, okay. And then I came back, and it was obvious he wasn't going to do it, and everybody else said, yeah, you should just do it, otherwise we're just going to get roadblocked. We're not going to get anywhere, looking for a new writer. You know the material, and you're a good writer, start writing. So that's what I did. It was, I would say on a business footing, I could have been smarter, but creatively, to just be doing that work that we were doing was great. My frustration is that there was a lot more poetry, I thought, to what I wrote on the original script that was shot in the film. And the feeling of Netflix was that Americans, this is Netflix, I don't think this, Americans are too stupid, they won't get it. Okay, well they got Lord of the Rings. It's not more complicated than Lord of the Rings. They watched Denzel Washington do Macbeth, but I'm not comparing my writing with that. What I mean is you shouldn't cut it for the basis that all these Americans with their six-pack and their pizza, they won't get it. But to do it, to write it, and to see it now and to hear these wonderful performances, it's the great experience of my life, no question. Yeah, sir?
2 questions.
Yeah.
You said mainly in art, most of it.
Yes.
Sydney stuff.
No, the Auckland Film Studios, which is where the interior of the mansion was, and then we were out on location on both the North and South Island. I don't know how familiar people are with New Zealand geography, but there's a North and a South Island. So we went to North and South Island to the best places that we could find. And many of them, I think, do have a feel, particularly when the cart is riding along at the beginning. If you laid in Lord of the Rings music, I don't know that you'd know that this was Crouching Tiger.
How many days did it take? How long did it take?
How long was the shoot?
No, to write that script.
To write the script. That's interesting, because I'm a preternaturally fast writer, and probably some people have read my scripts, seen my movies and gone, yeah, we can tell. but it was almost like automatic writing, because it was like the outline was there and I was really into the characters. I knew all the actors. The problem was that there were a lot of masters on that movie, a lot of directors, and as I say, sometimes out of conflict and this turmoil, it's like the early universe, you know, out of that comes something bright and wonderful, and I do think the film is quite bright and wonderful. But that was kind of from that back and forward, and we would have 10 o'clock script changes, 5 past 10 script changes, 11 minutes past 10 script changes. And I'd be doing that, and you might think, oh my God, how awful. But it was almost like doing commedia dell'arte or doing improv, to be on the set spending $60 million and just spinning plates. There's something wonderful about that. So I didn't mind it. I just mind when they actually cut it, the stuff that I really like got cut out. And it's just little subtle one-liners, I mean, or little moments got cut. But that's just my own take, and the film was well received, so, you know. And the trouble with Netflix is they don't really have a tendency to do like a director's cut.
Yeah.
I mean, that probably was a director's cut, but I mean, to do an extended cut. Do a producer's cut. Come on, everybody, campaign for one.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Any more questions? Yes, sir. Oh, Kevin, yes.
Yeah, what was, do you have a favorite moment and also a most challenging moment on this project?
Challenging moment. I mean, the most challenging scene to get in the movie was the one where all the bad guys charge into the courtyard, and I still don't think, that was really unfortunate, because I had to go back to, this is a little fun side story. I went back and I had a lunch date with a famous Hollywood producer, Jack Ma from Alibaba, and Jet Li. And what was I doing there? At that time, we were trying to spin off part of Miramax to sell it to Jack Ma. So I had to come back to have this lunch. And that stuff was shot while I was away, and I always felt it didn't quite, how did everybody suddenly, they're putting up the barricades and people just charge in. How did that happen? So that was, for me, the most challenging scene, that we had to reshoot it significantly, and we had to rebuild part of a demolished set. We had to hire a double for an actress. We had to do, but it works. When you see it in the movie, I don't think you can tell how much we went through the fires of hell to do it. But the funny story about Hong Kong was, originally on Crouching Tiger 1, Jet Li was meant to play Li Mubai, the character played by Zhao Yunfan. And then he left because his wife was pregnant. That was his story. The real story was they couldn't meet the price. But his story was, I'm doing it for my wife. But anyway, or not doing it for my wife. So he quit and Zhao Yunfan did it. Anyway, so then I came back, and as a present to try to entice Jack Ma to buy the company, I had a replica of that Qingming game, which you can see here at the museum now. And I took this, I'm giving it to Jack Ma, like, you know, cha-hai moment, like, Jack Ma, please buy the company, by the way, here's the Qingming game. And Jack Ma can't pick it up because it's in a big box. So Jet Li picks the sword up and walks out with it. And I'm the only person to have seen Jet Li with the Qingming game, with the Green Destiny. No one else has. And I was like, oh, I want to take a photo, but it would not have been the right moment because it was very sensitive negotiations. But that was so I was doing that in Hong Kong, and I came back and saw the first cut of the storming of the courtyard. And I was like, this just doesn't make sense. And then they were like, no, we know. And then we sat down and we had, and Charlie Wynn, our Vietnamese director, came in, and he was really responsible for looking at bits. We'd already struck the set, which was like, basically there was 2 courtyards. One courtyard set, that got struck, second courtyard set. But we had to reshoot on the first courtyard set that no longer existed. So that's easy to answer. And the favorite one, yes, beautiful, thanks so much. So, in closing, I'd like to talk about this scene, which was shot at a place called Sunset Station. And it's somewhere in the wilds of New Zealand. And I had never been there on the recce, but I'd seen photos. And I arrived dark, well before dawn, and you know, we went up to where this hill is with that tree. That's a real tree. Production designed by God, this ancient weathered tree like something from the Bible. And just watching the stars fade and the sun rises, and then we all came together around this tree and shot this amazing scene. My favorite shot of the movie is when the little girl watches as a Steadicam shot, where the little girl watches her mother ride away. And in the evening, then you see the sun goes down, the stars coming out. And how often in life do you get to be with a band of brothers under the sun, under the stars, under the sky, under heaven, and just to work from dawn till dusk? So I thought when I was there, so brief are the hours of man, the days of man. Let us work now. Thank you.
Thank you for everybody for being here. We truly appreciate it. Thank you, Bey Logan. Thank you for the wonderful film. We're going to have a lot more of these coming up. Bey's working with us to bring more stuff here. Yeah.
Next time we'll have some real actors and real directors, don't worry. This time you got kind of sold short. Next time, Donnie Yen, Hitman 5.
There you go, there you go. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the time at the museum and enjoy the great artifacts that we have. These are the actual artifacts, including the Green Destiny back over there. So thank you so much for coming. Enjoy it.